Every journey has an inspiring story behind it, and Effortless Conversations uncovers how that journey has helped our people thrive. Let's get started.
So today we're talking to Mark Gordon, National Sales Director at Princeton Mortgage, also recipient of Housing Wire's 2020 Rising Star Award. Mark, welcome to Effortless Conversations.
Cool. I'm glad to know that it's effortless and you guys are going to make it super easy for me, but thanks for having me.
So first off, we got to say very big congratulations to you and I guess all of the leadership team and everybody at Princeton Mortgage on a super successful summer. Obviously great customer satisfaction scores, obviously in the top 1%. We've been keeping that standard, record-breaking fundings, and company growth is just awesome in all areas, LOs, operations, everywhere. So why don't you just tell us a little bit how it feels to wrap up a summer, head into Q4, and just have all this success on your shoulders?
I don't know about all that, but I'll say it's an exciting time, obviously, to be in the mortgage industry. I'm super grateful that, to be in an industry that has come through a really tumultuous year in the country on top, right? And so, while I think Princeton Mortgage has done amazing things, I think it'd be silly to ignore the fact that this has been an amazing opportunity for mortgage companies all over the country. Having said that, I do think some of the things that you mentioned have really separated Princeton, which is that not only have we been able to take advantage in terms of these low rates delivering the effortless mortgage to more people than ever before, which is great, but that those people are still having the same amazing customer service experience that they were having with Princeton before. And so super proud of our sales team and their communication with their borrowers, setting proper expectations for what at times has been a longer or bumpier process. Our operations team, which has put in incredible hours and a ton of really amazing work to kind of manpower through systems that really were not built for the type of volume that we're doing right now. And obviously the marketing team, who's done an amazing job keeping up with all of our new projects that we've had to take on as we've brought in new people, broken into new markets. All that is all the amazing work the team did. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's an awesome testament just because fundings and closings have been buku numbers. And it's throughout all of that, customer satisfaction has been still so high. And that's awesome.
Honestly, every month when the numbers come out, I literally do a double take that can't even be possible. And I say that because when you're in it here in the fight of it, all you can see are all of the opportunities to improve things. And really the problems are the only things that ever get brought to you, right? I mean, we've specifically designed our system to where if a customer is unhappy, they have a million different ways to let us know, and we make that effortless too. We make it effortless for our team here to tell us when there's a problem. And so those problems get to my desk all month long, and all I see is okay, we have to improve this, we have to improve this, we have to improve this. It is an amazing feeling at the end of the month when our customers go, hey, we felt all of that, right? And so that those things are working. But when you're in the fight of it, it just feels like, a dam with 1,000 leaks. And every time that you plug one, there's 3 more that spring up that may be a little bit smaller than the first one, but still just as substantial. Having said that, the culmination of the work the team's done is obviously paying off. And I think we've had one Princeton promise for the quarter, and that person told us to keep $750 of our $1,000 in money because whatever issue they have is a $250 issue. And they're like, no, we're not mad at you. We just want $250 back. So we said, okay. So I think our total payouts are $250 so far for the quarter. And it just, with considering the amount of volume that we're doing, it's just incredible and amazing work from the whole team.
Yeah, man. Effortless is the name of the game. So before things got effortless, we're going to jump back pre-Princeton Mortgage. I want to know about the Mark Gordon straight out of college.
Welcome to Effortless Conversations, the Princeton Mortgage podcast highlighting what makes our company and the housing industry so great: the people. At Princeton Mortgage, we are a team of motivated people who are driven to achieve excellence in our work and reach our full potential while enjoying the journey.
I know you played rugby a little bit and then you jumped into insurance sales. Tell us about your journey, right after college, what you were planning to do before you got into mortgages.
Well, I mean, planning, planning, I use that word loosely. So here's, I was fortunate to grow up in, kind of a Pleasantville-like town in New Jersey, a town called Westfield, where, it was very clear to see, I grew up in a town where people were succeeding around me. So at least I knew what success looked like. I knew where the bar was. I knew roughly that I was going to have to make a whole lot more money than I was qualified to make in order to give my kids the same life and opportunities that I had growing up. And so my plan was figure that out. And when I went into insurance, well, I guess I'll say to any kids out there who are getting to, or people who are young and figuring out what they want to do with their career, every experience I had along the way, even the most negative ones, were incredibly fundamental in giving me the tools that ended up in any successes I had. And so, the first company that I started working at was a company called Bankers Life and Casualty. They're a huge insurance company, doesn't do a lot of like brand name marketing, but the arena right now that the Indiana Pacers play their home games in is Bankers Life and Casualty. So they're a huge company. They gave me my first job out of school. And what was fundamental to my time there was they had a really specific training program for salespeople with like specific, you say this here, say this here, say this here. And it was like scalable and trainable. And it was a system where like, we'll hire basically, they hired me, but I think they would have really hired anybody who wanted to work there. You paid to go get your insurance license. They put you through this like 2 weeks of really intense training that was super helpful and useful. Then you went out and did it. And honestly, the best week I ever had at Bankers Life and Casualty was my first week out of training, and I was like, you just fully believe in the system. You go out there, you put your little flip book up, and you're like, and then at the end you go, so you want to buy insurance? And they're like, yes. And you follow the system. And then what happened was I did pretty well there, but never as well as the top people. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute, but I did pretty well there. But every time the natural inclination of a salesperson is to give yourself credit for all the successes and never the system. And so you get a little bit away from the system and then a little bit more, until after 3 or 4 months, you can't even recognize your selling system anymore if you don't continue to work on it. So I learned all those lessons up front. And that's really been kind of the secret to the Princeton selling system even now, which is not only is it amazing to have a training program, but you need to fundamentally as a company build huge systems around incentivizing your people to stick with that system, because our natural tendency, in spite of our best intentions, is to move away from it. So, but the reason I got out of insurance is ultimately, there were like 22 guys in my office. I was always like fourth. And the top two were doing like 3 times as much volume as I was. And I was probably only doing like double what the person who was like 18th was doing. So it was like, that's kind of a weird board. But when I started thinking about those two people I noticed 2 things right away. One is that they were older than I was. They knew a lot more people. I had a bigger network of people. When you're 22 years old out of college, it's hard to find people who want to buy life insurance. And so it's just different networks, right? But the second thing was that they were super passionate about the product. They were what I consider at the time paranoid, right? Like one guy was like 32 years old. He's like, I need to have long-term care insurance. I'm like, okay, man, like if that's you, but like and by the way, he might've been right, but it didn't speak to me. It wasn't what I thought. I still thought I was invincible at 22 years old. So that didn't really make sense to me. So it wasn't core to me as a product. And so the way I found the mortgage industry is after a year in insurance, I was looking for a product that I could really believe in. And that was my number one thing that I wanted. And when I walked into Castle Point Mortgage in Parsippany, New Jersey, and these guys were making all this money and they were happy. And I started sitting down with them and watching, like they were only selling loans that made sense for people. And I was like, wow, if someone's going to apply and then I call them and I give them what they asked for, and that's the job, like, I don't think anyone is going to be better than me at that. And fortunately, that was a good decision. It turned out to be correct.
So is that where like the passion kind of led to for mortgages? You were like not very much in love with insurance because like you felt like you were selling a product that people maybe needed, maybe didn't need, but mortgages, people were like, they needed these. So you felt very passionate about giving something to somebody that they needed.
Yeah, I mean, it was a refi call center. So what that means is people were like going on like lendingtree.com or lowermybills.com, and they were like, I want to consolidate credit card debt. I want to take money out for home improvements. I want to lower my interest rate or whatever it was. And actually, at the time I got in, it was actually a pretty high interest rate time coming out of a low interest rate time. So in 2003, 2004, we had these all-time record low rates that have since been obliterated by our new all-time low records, but the lowest they really had ever been. And then when I got in 05 and 06, the rates were like 6%, 6.25%. The lowest 30-year fixed rate I ever sold was 6.25%, I think, or maybe 5.875 the first couple of weeks I was there. And so we were selling people loans who, like, sometimes they were going up in interest rate, but they had high interest credit card debt or no other way out. And we were really giving them a second chance. And that was kind of the subprime. So a lot of those loans probably didn't end up in the best situations. But I'll tell you that for me and my company, we took a very honest stance on like, this is the last time you're going to be able to do this. This is your get out of jail free card. By the way, if you make your on-time payments, we'll bring you back in 6 months for free and get you into a prime loan with your new credit or a year in certain situations. But I was really trying to help people. And so when someone would call me and they'd be like, I don't know what to do. I have 40 grand in credit card debt. I can't afford my bills. Like, it's getting worse. And I had this solution for them, which by the way would save them like, $800 a month now and another $300 or $400 a month if they came back in 6 months. That was something I could be super passionate about. And that passion led to longer hours, excited to do it on the weekends, more income, and it all just fed itself. But with the insurance thing, I felt like I was constantly searching for somebody who like had already made the decision they wanted insurance, which is not a lot of people walking around there going like, man, if I just had time and the energy to buy life insurance right now. But with the mortgage thing, they'd already applied in a different kind of way. And so it was just they were ready. It was now whether or not they're going to go with me or somebody else. And I learned very early that me caring about my customers and being willing to answer the phone whenever people called, I was already doing more for them than my competition.
Princeton Mortgage is growing, and we are looking to add motivated individuals in various areas of the company throughout the United States. If you are a mortgage professional looking to advance your career with a company featured in Inc. 5000, Housing Wire, and many other awards and publications, check out our careers page at careers.princetonmortgage.com.
Cool. Do you like laugh at, like listening back to that? Do you laugh a little bit? You're like, I was helping people out and they were getting 6% rates looking at like the rates of today. Are you just like, wow, what a far cry it's been from then?
So most of the loans I sold were probably more like 9, 10, or 11%. Some were as high as 13%. The best ones were 6%. But you know what? Honestly, the rates have changed, but the game is still exactly the same. And so it doesn't feel like some like foreign time or anything like that to me. Obviously we were able to do loans for people that we wouldn't be able to do loans for now. And by the way, that's correct. I mean, last thing I knew anything about was credit risk at 22 years old, or whether these were good loans or they were going to perform. It was like, hey, I'm putting this person in a better situation today than they were in yesterday. How that's going to predict their ability to stay in that situation or not, like I wasn't there yet, right? And so for me, it was like, I can help this person today be in a better situation tomorrow than they were in yesterday. And that's what it is. And it's the same philosophy today, right? The coolest thing about the mortgage industry is I don't ever have to try to sell anything that someone doesn't want. They're either trying to buy a home and we're trying to help them do that, or they're trying to save money to live in the house they already live in. And if we can't save them money, there's nothing to pitch. And so, that was my favorite part of it, which was like, if I'm presenting this program, it's because I would do it if I were them. And that was what I needed to unlock my sales ability.
Yeah, man, I love it. It's not like, you're not a very salesy salesperson. You're like giving them what they need, what they're already asking for. So you're helping them out in a way. So I love it. Talk about your climb from like, okay, you were in the mortgage industry and then you like climbed into this leadership position at Fortune Funding, right? Talk about like this climb into like being a leader all the way up to Fortune Funding. And then we can talk about Princeton Mortgage, how you become the national sales director. But like, tell us a little bit about that journey. Was it quick? Was it slow? What was it? Was it hard?
Like, well, yes. If it wasn't hard, everyone would do it. But it seemed very. It's just who I am, and what I mean by that is, the minute I got to Castle Point, my manager, who was one of the best managers I've ever had, actually, and he graduated college, gone up through the enterprise management program. And an enterprise, unless you're willing to like move to different regions, at some point you like cap out as like the head of your location, and it's kind of hard to move up. But if you're willing to move, you can make, the top people at enterprise make $1 million a year if you're running like your state or whatever. And everyone at enterprise goes through the exact same training program. So you can't get hired in like later. You have to like all come up the same way. So, but he had made the decision that his wife, I should say, really made the decision that they were going to stay in New Jersey no matter what. So when he left enterprise, he came into the mortgage industry. And he only been at Castle Point for 8 months, in the mortgage for 8 months when he got promoted to be a manager. And I was like one of the first people on his team. So from the minute I got there, I just became obsessed with this idea, like I can do this quickly, I can move, I can be a manager. And I don't know, and it wasn't about money or anything else. It was just like, I wanted to prove to myself that I could do it. I wanted to do well. Being a manager, telling my friends I was a manager, that all sounded really good to me. So from that point on, I just kind of became obsessed with doing the best I could. And so I became the number 1 loan officer so that I could be a manager. And I became the number 1 manager, hoping that I'd be able to kind of be a center manager. And then 2008 hit, my company ran out of business. And I was dating my wife at the time. I had my friend Brett with me, who also works here at Princeton Mortgage. And we went out one day to a cigar bar and we were like, let's go try to do our own thing. And so at the time, there were this there are these huge national broker shops where like you could have your little broker shop as part of their bigger broker shop. And the second biggest one in the country at the time was company First Metropolitan Mortgage. And so I went online and I applied, and the recruiter called me. He's like, can you put a business model together? So I put together our big business model. I literally took it out of a book and just retyped our numbers in. And they called up and they're like, this is the most comprehensive business model we've ever seen. And that's when I knew that the mortgage industry was going to be for me, because I was just a little more maybe detail oriented or ambitious than some of the other people doing it. But so we went down to Charlotte, North Carolina and trained there. And then we built this branch. Within 6 months, they had 300 branches. And within 6 months, we were the #1 branch in the country. And we opened that branch during the 2008 like financial crisis. So we actually, our first day open was August 8th of 2008. And by January, we were the #1 branch in the company. And so
wait, when I asked if it was quick, it was really quick.
Yeah, well, everybody else was like, I think the rest of the mortgage industry was crying in their milk. It was a really bad time. We just didn't know any better. All I knew is I loved Castle Point where I worked. I loved it. I didn't want to work anywhere else, but it didn't exist anymore. And so I was like, well, then I'm just going to go build it because that's where I want to work. And that's all of the thought I had in my head at the time. And then it was survival. I mean, Nicole and I, for the first 4, it's funny, but within 6 months we were the #1 branch, but we spent so much money getting that business model off the ground. Nicole and I lived on unemployment for the first 5 months that we were there. I mean, it was tough to get that going. And then, but then that started doing really well. And then that company sold to another company, and then that company ran out of money. As we were with all these branches, they started bouncing payroll checks and everything else. So I would have stayed there. I was super happy there, but then that kind of fell out from under me. And so I said, okay, well, I have attached my cart to somebody else's horse long enough. I want to go see if I can start my own mortgage company. And so there are a couple of things that happened, but essentially I found an investor that was willing to give us the money to start Fortune Funding. And we started it, again, me, Nicole, and Brett, and Dave, who works here at Princeton as well. We all went out, the 4 of us, and started Fortune from scratch. And we literally picked an office space that was still cement down to the studs, and we built it out and paid for every desk, put them all together ourselves, the chairs, all of it. And within a few years, we had an 80-person company, and we were doing a bunch of volume. And then, the opportunity to sell that company came up, and I really had learned, I built Fortune up to basically what Castle Point was. And I had no vision beyond that because I had never seen anything else. And so I wasn't smart enough at the time to read books or call other people or get consultants. I was just like, cool, like that's what we did. We built it. We did it. Now what? And I didn't know what to do. So I was like, okay, well, we'll sell the company. At least I'll learn from somebody else. That turned out to not work out great in the selling of the company, but at least it wasn't just a permanent fit for me. And then honestly, Nicole and I, we decided we wanted to leave New Jersey, move to Charleston, South Carolina. We were going to open a small little broker shop down here and have an easier life. That was the plan. And then one day this guy, Mike Mateka, called me on the phone and was like, do you want to talk to the CEO of Princeton Mortgage? And I was like, sure. So I met Rich and we fell in love, and the rest is history.
Wait, back up. What was the sell? Like, what was his sell? Like, people call you probably all the time. Like, what was the sell like to talk to Rich? Like, what was appealing? What made you be like, yes, let's have a conversation?
So what maybe the conversation was, he was like, do you want to talk to the CEO of Princeton Mortgage? And I was like,
that's it.
If I'm always willing to have a conveation with the CEO who wants to talk to me. Maybe I can learn something, it was very like, sure, man, like I'll talk to your CEO. Fine. I was really silly about it. I should have been more excited about it, honestly, going into it, but I was just like, fine. I don't get calls every day where the CEO of a company will talk to me. I didn't know anything about Princeton Mortgage, but it made sense to have a conversation. But that initial call with Rich went great. And then he invited me down to come down to Princeton Mortgage and see, kind of just get to know each other a little bit better. And I think we had like a 4:00 meeting that didn't end until 9:00 at night. And so, and what the sale was that Rich and I saw the world the same way, but had completely different life experiences that had led to completely different skill sets. And so I thought that he desperately needed somebody who could do what I could do. And I thought that if he had been my partner at Fortune, we would have made it in a different kind of way, or we would never have sold, because he was the kind of person who would just like have read a bunch of books and figured out what to do next. And I didn't have that the same way. And he had spent hours and hours and hours writing down all his thoughts on culture and how he wanted to build everything, even though there was no company there yet. He just was imagining what it was all going to be like. And I was like, well, good news. I can build that. And so that was my thought. And, I took a lead. I told Nicole and Dave that we were coming to Princeton. they hadn't met Rich yet. And so I had to sell them on doing all that. Because Nicole was like, I thought we were opening a little broker shop and moved to South Carolina. And Dave was like, all right, man, whatever you say. And then we go down to the office and they didn't even have internet that worked. Basically, I couldn't even get my computer to start. There's nothing there. But, Rich was at the perfect point and had the right mindset for what I needed. And it was really just simple as that. It was like, I knew that this was somebody who would make me better. And I was at a point where I wanted to take that next step. And so that's really what the attraction was to Princeton. And so far, he hasn't let me down, but I think he's taught me everything he knows now. So I don't know what to do next.
So you had a 5-hour meeting with Rich. How long after that were you like, oh, like you said, I talked to Nicole and Dave and said, we're working with Princeton Mortgage. Like, was it a week? Was it a day? Was it 5 minutes after that meeting? Like, when did you know after talking to Rich and, talking about culture and building a new brand and all this?
So when I sold my company, I had to wait a year to get out. We were like at the 11-month point when all this happened. And I had started to realize like I wasn't going to stay. I hadn't like even said that like officially out loud yet, but we started like planning like, well, what would we do next if it didn't work out? And we had this like super aggressive non-compete, but also this like very aggressive settlement clause if we left, where they had to give us money if we left, but we couldn't do any more mortgages, like this whole thing. And at the end of the day, I was just like, cool, if you guys let me go on the non-compete, I'll let you go on the money. And then, and that was kind of what happened. So that all happened pretty quick, but I guess here's where like it turned. I decided I was definitely going to leave the company that acquired us. And I called Rich and I was like, hey man, here's the deal. Like, I'm going to leave. I'm going to Charleston. I just want to let you know. And I was just calling to like, let him know. I owed him the phone call. And he literally said the words, all right, let's do it. And I was like, okay. And I was not even pitching it when he said it, but I was like, okay, that's interesting. That's okay, sure. And that was Friday and it was like a snowstorm. And I just talked to Matt Joy. I met Matt Joy for the first time on the phone. And we've introduced. And then Monday, Rich calls me. He's like, great news. I talked to somebody in my family over the weekend. I can't remember, friend, brother-in-law, whatever it was. And he was like, there's a ton of great mortgage companies in Charlotte that we can take people from. And I'm like, cool, but we're not going to Charlotte. We're going to Charleston. And he was like, oh, right. You told me that. Charleston, never mind then. And I was like, are you sure you're still in? We're going to do this. And he said, yes. So that's the story there. But yeah, I mean, we just wanted to work together. So we made it work, even from 800 miles away.
And you guys have developed something really great here. I mean, obviously we talked about at the beginning of this episode about the growth that we've experienced just in this last summer. But like, I mean, obviously rates have been like a big indicator of that. But like, obviously prior to the last 3 months, like if you look at our numbers, like we've always, or not, I don't want to say always, but we've been on an upward climb. So, I mean, has it been very successful? Has it felt very successful all the way up, or has it been like a recent thing, or like what is the biggest hurdle that you guys have had to kind of jump over to get to where you are now?
I'm still waiting to feel successful, so I'll let you know what happens when we get there. No, I mean, listen, here's the deal. We get a report every single day that shows how many loans we've originated in this quarter versus the same quarter last year. I get the email every single day. And while this summer has certainly accelerated with what's going on in the industry, the reality is for the last year, every quarter, we've been 2.5 to 3 times more originations this quarter this year versus this quarter last year. And that's going back to even the second and third quarter of last year. And so we're up 9 or 10x off of where we were in this quarter 2 years ago. So the growth's been pretty steady. But the goal is 50,000 loans a year by 2028. And so to be honest with you, I don't know that there's a whole lot that I'm going to stop and celebrate until we get there. That's just how I'm wired. That's why we'll probably do it, because nothing's ever going to feel like enough if we don't.
It's a great mindset. I mean, that seems to be like what you've been doing your entire career. I mean, ever since you left insurance sales, when you got in the mortgage industry, you just kind of had your eyes set on bigger picture things.
I love it, man. You know what scares me?
No.
Probably not going to be enough when we get there either. I'm
You're
already
looking at 100,000 loans.
Yeah. No. Well, yeah. Or who knows? But the drive for me is very simply this: let's see what we can do. Let's put our 100% effort in every single day, maybe 110%. Go beyond, learn, get better, be humble, grow. And if we keep doing the right things and doing the right things by our people and our teams and our clients and our customers, the sky's the limit. And so while it was a ridiculous goal to set at 50,000 loans a year by 2028 when we set it. We had like no loans. We were doing 15 loans a month. Maybe we were going to do 200 loans that year. We're going to do 50,000 loans a year in 10 years. It was silly. But I'll tell you, this year, to sit here and we'll probably finish this year, just under 4,000 loans. It's starting to feel like it could happen. It's starting to feel like like we should get there. And so there is a victory in that, which is it no longer seems silly. The number no longer seems silly. It seems doable. If it's not still very hard.
Realistic. So on this journey to 50,000 loans, when we talk to other people on the sales team, obviously loan officers and such, they attest their success and their own growth to two things. Pretty much what we keep hearing is the culture and the selling system. So talk about how you develop the selling system and what makes it so special for Princeton Mortgage and the sales team here.
Yeah. So, the thing, again, one of the reasons I was so attracted to working with Rich is because he had read all these books, and it wasn't like he was just regurgitating information from other people. He was able to internalize that stuff and really draw his own conclusions and make it real for him. And so, but right out of the gate, when I first got here, I just started reading like crazy. I was probably reading a book a week and really investing time into that growth. And he was like, listen, he goes, when you don't know what to, I told you, when I was at Castle Point, I observed everything they did as a company, and then I made it 10 or 15% better and built my own company. And that was the vision I had. So when Rich opened me up to all these books, really for the first time, which I was not a reader prior to that, I was like, oh man, there's a model. I don't have to work there. I don't have to be in it. I can literally just read what this other company did and do that 10 or 15% better. And that's mine. And so the book that we've stolen a lot from a lot of really smart people, but the book that I think we've done the most with is Ninja Selling by Larry Kendall. And by the way, that is an old school sales system designed to be done by anybody who wants to follow the rules and do the same things all the time and build a predictable process. And when I first started talking about doing that for loan officers, the response I got was, you will never get outside outside loan officers to follow a program. And I was like, well, that sounds like a real big challenge because, on the inside, I was really good at getting my guys to follow the program. They loved the program. And I said, well, how do we do that? And so the first thing was that we made it a choice. We gave freedom and responsibility. We didn't make anyone do it at all. We just made it attractive enough to say, we will incentivize you to try it. We will incentivize you with free marketing to stay with it and make that free marketing so good that it'd be crazy for them not to do the stuff because they'd be giving up on this free marketing while everybody else was getting it. And so we literally had a loss. We were losing money at the time as a company. And we said, Courtney, you have to build this huge marketing thing that we're going to do, this ambitious thing that, by the way, Larry Kendall says the realtor has to do that for themselves. They do it by hand. They do it for these 200 people. We're saying, no, we're going to systemize it and say, loan officer just mentioned says, this is who I want that to happen with, and we're going to build it in the background. And we had no business trying that or doing that, but we pulled it off and it worked. And then we had a couple loan officers that we had here who had never really done big numbers before, but they came in here and said, I'll try it. We had to beg them to come in here and try it. We had no loan officers, no credibility or anything. We said, try this thing. And then it started working. And then it started really working. And then we had the next batch and it started working for them. And then we'd have people come in and they'd be resistant. I'd be like, why don't you ask those people? And they'd be like, dude, it works. But then what made it really work is that every 3 mornings a week still to this day, I get on camera in front of the entire company, wherever they are, and we talk about how to get better at it. And we train on it and we coach on it and we train on it and we coach on it. And we get better at the marketing, we get better at each piece of it, and it grows on itself, and we share our stories. And so we have an entire machine designed to support those important but non-urgent activities. Because what the whole Princeton selling system is, it's the mindset, first of all, you have to have the mindset to do it. But then it's really just 10 to 12 hours a week of important but non-urgent activities that if you do them every single week, regardless of how busy you are or not busy you are, regardless if you're sick or you don't feel good or it's a holiday week or whatever else it is, you're going to do this 10 hours worth of stuff. The rest of it really takes care of itself. And so we've seen it, we've proven it out, and now it's just about finding other people who want to see how well it's working by coming in here and trying it out for themselves.
Yeah, and the growth is real. I mean, honestly, if you look at some of the salespeople and people we've had on this podcast, Nicole, Fred, like they told us, their numbers were like meager to start, but then they started following the sales system. And it's like, Fred told us he's getting his own branch, and Nicole's got her team of like, I don't know, 4 or 5 people with her. Like the growth is real.
It's unquestionable, right? And, a lot of it has been most of it has been just super organic. I mean, Nicole hadn't been an outside loan officer before. She obviously had a ton of industry experience, but I mean, shout out to all the underwriters and processors out there that want to do something different a little bit more. If you know mortgages and know how to do that stuff, we'll teach you how to sell. We'll teach you how to build a sales system and follow that. The hard part for us, actually, the easy part for us now is helping people find loans. I will give you the keys to you going out there and finding loans, and you got to do the work, and it's hard work, but it's 10 to 12 hours a week, like we talked about, of that hard work. You do that, the loans will come. The hard part is teaching people how to do mortgages, which is really an 18-month of trial and error and pain to figure out all the different things that can go wrong on a mortgage. And I've been in it for 15 years. I still see something new almost every day. So, the growth of those guys is they were already, Fred was a really good mortgage person and not great at finding loans. Nicole had a career of building everything in the mortgage industry, from CRMs to processing and everything else. She'd done sales in the call center, but never on the outside, but she had the mortgage background. So it was like, cool, here are the keys to go finding loans. Same thing with Brett. Same thing with James Kim. And even Lisa Sullivan, who had a long career and had a bunch of success before, but had kind of lost her way on some of the prospecting stuff. Here are the keys to that. Now she's doing $3 million a month. So, we've seen over and over again that we can take care of the, how do you build relationships with realtors? How do you find loans? That part we can teach. The part that's much harder to teach, that really only comes from the experience, is, how do we get around this DTI, or how is income going to ruin this loan, or what are we going to do with title on this loan? Those are types of things that really only come with experience. And so, I think most companies focus their training on that part of it, and that takes experience. But we've now come up with a really predictable solution for the other half.
Yeah, man, and it's the numbers show. The numbers show how good the selling system is having results with the sales team. So, looking at like the culture at Princeton Mortgage, it's just different. It's just different than some companies. It's just different from other mortgage companies, and very much because of things that you and other people on the leadership team have developed. So, like, what makes Princeton so unique and appealing for people in this industry, not just sales, like underwriters, processors, whoever, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, we genuinely want the people here to pursue the work they're most passionate about, right? And so that doesn't mean you can just pick up and do whatever you want. Obviously, that's not how that works, but it does mean that you can, you can make a transition from processing to underwriting, or from opening to closing, or from sales to operations, or operations to sales. And then within that work you're doing, we give you freedom and responsibility as long as you get results, right? The cost of freedom and responsibility, or the cost of freedom is that responsibility and that accountability to the results. So it's a results-based culture with a lot of freedom and support. And so, with our loan officers, we let any loan officer who wants to here hire a loan officer assistant when they think they're ready, as long as they're willing to cover half the cost and we cover half the cost. And so that freedom to make the decision when you want to leads to that person not having all the options they need here, so that there's never a reason to leave. There's nobody here in the company that can say, I'm struggling here because of Princeton Mortgage, because we literally give them all the support and all the freedom to run their business the way they want to, obviously within what's compliant and allowed. But and that is the real difference, whether it's sales or operations. It is management here is here to remove obstacles so that you can pursue the work you're most passionate about to get the best results. And a lot of this we stole from Netflix, which is my favorite example of culture, right? How do you build a company that really is 3 completely separate companies that each time outperforms? Netflix went from being a logistics company that had to figure out how to mail movies all over the country, to a technology company that had to figure out how to stream huge amounts of data to all these different places all over the world, and then to an original content company, right? All 3 times they kicked the crap out of everybody. Well, how do you do that? Radical candor, radical transparency. We share everything with almost everything with almost everybody, so that we can push decision-making down to the lowest level of competency. And so there's no bottlenecks. There's no identify manager. There's no, well, if you knew what I knew, you'd understand. We don't have any of that here. Everybody has the opportunity to know everything. And so when you do that, you unlock the potential of each individual person. And so that's, I think, what makes our culture different. And I don't see a lot of people in the mortgage industry acting that way. So we went outside the mortgage industry to find out what the best of people were doing. And again, Netflix, or whether it's Ray Dalio, or, you know, any of these other, Google with our OKR stuff, you know, they didn't invent it, but we certainly learned a lot about watching them use it. You know, that's kind of our journey so far.
Great to follow the Netflix's lead. I mean, you see now, like all the streaming sites that come out, people are like, oh, Netflix is going to see a dip, and they're like still leading the charge in streaming services. So like, I don't know if anybody ever starts copying the Princeton mortgage model, is that like, you're confident we've got the route set and we're like ready to go. We're the only one that can kind of do this correctly, because we've been following this for the last, I don't know, I want to say like 2.5 years, 3 years.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I took over retail sales in like July of 2018. So we're just past 2 years. So no, the answer is no. I'm not 100% confident we'll always have some lead in that. And by the way, we don't have to. I interviewed a recruiter this week that I actually ended up hiring, and she was like, who are your main competition? And I was like, this is a huge space in the mortgage industry. You're talking about like multiples of trillions of dollars in loans that are being done every year. There's room for a lot of really successful companies. And if you look at the top 10 mortgage companies right now, they have completely different business models, right? UWM is doing it all wholesale. Quicken Loans is doing it through a call center and their wholesale channel. Movement has just retail, right? But for the most part, they're almost 100% retail. Freedom is mostly call center, right? And so they have these different, and by the way, no one would compare what Freedom is doing in their call center to what Quicken's doing in their call center. It's completely different, right? So there's not one way to skin the cat. Having said that, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. I would be super flattered if somebody tried to do what we were doing here. It would mean that we were probably doing something correctly. But again, I think it's really hard to maintain this culture, because you have to be willing every day to choose short-term discomfort over long-term dysfunction. I have to stand in front of the entire sales team 3 times a week and answer every question about everything. I start off every one-on-one with, what can I do to make your life better here at Princeton Mortgage? And you can't do that unless you're actually willing to make those changes. And if you don't have a culture that you build from the ground up, that's based on radical candor, sharing your critical opinions, not worried about hurting people's feelings. You want to be compassionate when you can be, but the truth is more important. Sharing everything with everybody. It's hard to share everything with everybody because I've been doing that the whole time. Because you've attracted the wrong kind of people along the way. You can't just make that shift. Here, everybody knew what they were getting into. You guys both knew what you were signing up for, I hope, based on what was done in the interview process. And most times people, after their first 30 or 90 days here, when I asked them about, is Princeton Mortgage what you thought it was? They're not like kind of. They're like, actually more than I thought. Meaning like, I heard what you said during the interview, but I kind of thought it was at least a little bit BS. And it's actually exactly what you told me. And I'm still dealing with the reality of that, because it never even occurred to me it might be all of what you said, right? And so that's actually the reaction I get most. And so, yeah, if you can copy the whole thing, good for you. But I think there's a lot of real hard work that went into making us different. And by the way, even if 2 or 3 other companies did what we're doing, and there's a bunch of other companies that are super successful without doing any of what we're doing, you only have to be a top, depending on the year, top 10 or 20 lender to get to 50,000 loans a year. So we're not trying necessarily to be number one in this goal. That'd be great someday, but there's enough room for many people who are doing business the right way. And if we can make it a little bit harder to do things the wrong way in this industry by being successful and doing it right, that's a huge win.
Yeah, for sure. And I also love that you talked about the sharing aspect of this. Like I will never forget like the first all hands meeting I went into with like Rich, and he like brought up on like a chart. It was like, here's how much money we made this quarter. Here's how many, like, I have never been at any company where like the CEO is like, this is what we did this last quarter, or like last month or whatever. It's like really incredible to see like that much information just shared to like every single employee, from like the leadership team all the way down to like, assistants and interns and stuff. Like everybody knows what's going on. There's no secrets. And I think that's really cool.
Super cool.
So Mark Gordon today, looking back to Mark Gordon from insurance sales, I know you don't like to hang your hat on like successes or anything like that, but like, what is a moment in this industry or in your journey that you are really proud
Um, Man, there's probably a lot of moments I'm really proud of. And there's a lot of moments that I wish I could go back and have, I feel like I operate with a pretty high level of integrity generally, but, radical candor, like when you live in it here, it makes you look back at times and go, actually, I'm not really 100% sure I did always share what I thought of different things, different ways to go. It's hard for me to, you're right, I'm not wired for it. It's very hard for me to go back and look at things I'm proud of. What I'm proud of most is that through all those times we talked about where those companies went out of business from out from under me or where people were bouncing payroll checks, it never deterred me even for 1 minute. What I'm most proud of is that me and I'm most proud of the fact that I'm still working with a lot of the people that built that first branch with me, and we're still working together. 3 or 4 companies later, we've stayed together. We've all grown as people. They're all doing really well here as well, and I'm super proud that we're all doing that together. I'm proud that I haven't burned those bridges and that we all still have that same respect for each other. But we're mostly proud of the fact that we just never quit. I know a lot of people that started this industry who I think could have been very successful, who got beat down by what happened from 2006 to 2011 or 12. And some of those people are trying to get back into it now because they see, there's green pastures, right?
right.
But for me, it was like, hey, this playing field is fair. Everybody in this country either wants a mortgage or has a mortgage unless they've already paid theirs off. And so we're talking about a huge playing field. If you do the right stuff and work really hard, you can make money doing this. And so never once did I feel like it was unfair. And else, it just kept working hard. And so if I was most proud of anything, it's that good day, bad day. Otherwise, I get up every day. We come in here, we do the best that we can. And then we've learned a lot and we continue to grow. And I'm super humble about all the things we still don't know yet.
Yeah, man, you talked about, not burning any bridges. It's kind of crazy that like you have like, obviously Nicole's your wife. So like you guys go hand in hand with a lot of things, but like Dave and Brett have like stuck with you this whole path too. That's crazy.
Yeah. And
have you guys butted heads at all?
I mean, I think I've thrown chairs at some one time or another. Maybe not at Dave, but certainly in a room we were in, I threw a chair once. Not so proud of that, but yeah, I mean, of course, listen, I don't throw the word family around very much with that stuff because I feel like, in business, that's a dangerous thing because, you never know. I do feel like we're a professional sports team, that group, that has continued to level up, like European soccer. Like we were in like some weird town no one ever heard of, and then we won that league, and then we kind of, you get like the opposite of relegated or promoted. And now we're playing in the big leagues. And so, we've been through a lot together. And so, but yeah, of course, we butt heads like crazy. And, I remember Brett and I one time screaming at each other across the sales floor at Fortran, probably, we were also kids, I mean, that's another thing I think it's easy to forget. I mean, most of that journey took place when we were in our 20s, so, yeah, a lot of moments that I wish I could have handled better along the way. Sure.
Speaking to like what you could handle better along the way, like what is one real good tip you could give an Ella that's maybe like just getting into the mortgage industry or even like a seasoned vet that's like their future goal is like, I want to be Mark Gordon. I want to be a national sales director at a mortgage company, whether it's here or Princeton, or another company than Princeton Mortgage. Like what is a tip you can give to somebody?
So if you want to be successful, you asked a very specific question. If you want to be a sales leader, you need to really study what it takes to have people start following you. You need to be pay attention to the quality of the people that are following you, and you need to keep getting better at that every day. Leadership is not a title. It's not a position. It's not a promotion. You are a leader once people are following you. And so if that's what you want, then you need to, the first thing to do is do whatever job you're doing well enough where people start to pay attention, and then they start to want to learn from you. And then you need to be generous with your time in terms of how you teach those people. And You need to be flexible with how you teach different people with the way that they need to be taught if you want to lead, right? And so that would be my best advice there. But if you just want to be successful, there's a lot of loan officers making a lot of money this year. And you hear people say like, oh, it's ridiculous the amount of money these guys make. Well, the reality is that what they had to do to get here, it's easy to say this year they're making a ton of money, but that's a career's worth of work. If you said to somebody at 22 years old, if you're willing for the next 20 years to every day wake up and prospect, call people, cold call, walk into place, it doesn't matter what product you're selling, if you're in sales and you are willing to prospect every single day for 20 years, even if you're bad at it, at the end of that 20 years, you're going to be making a lot of money because you will have put the work into building those relationships, knowing people, and meeting so many different people through so many different walks of life. You'll build a network of people. Now, obviously, you have to do a good job when you sell something. You have to have integrity when you do it. But I'm assuming that most people, you have to know that already. But assuming you're a good person, you want to do things the right way, the secret is always, are you willing to do the work that no one else is willing to do? Are you willing to prospect? Are you willing to do that hard work? We just hired a guy here who has held every type of sales job in the industry and managed huge teams in terms of huge different organizations and sales teams. And he wanted to come here and he wanted to build something. I said, how are you going to build it? And he said, I'm going to make a list and I'm going to call these people this many times and I'm going to convert them at this percentage. And it wasn't like I'm going to have some fancy computer system that sends out these emails. It was like, no, I'm going to do the hard work of prospecting. That if you have no other skills, but your willingness is to work hard and get better at prospecting every day and do it every day, whether you feel like it or not, you will make money and you will succeed and you will learn and you will grow. And then people will probably start to follow you. So, there are a lot of amazing things about being born in this country, but the most amazing one is the opportunity for all of us, which is that is a fair one, by the way. Anybody can put that work in if they choose to do it. And so that'd be my best advice is if you're concerned about how you're going to feed your future family and you're 22 years old and how all that works, don't be afraid to pick up the phone. Get really good at reaching out to people and having those conversations, and the rest will take care of itself.
Keep at it. Go through the hard times, right? Hard times,
Yeah.
ups and downs. Just go through it.
You learn so much every time, whether it works or it doesn't.
Every failure is a learning lesson or whatever that quote is that you always hear. It's true though, right?
Listen, I'll say, one of the things that I think attracted Rich to want to work with me is when he asked me about Fortune, he goes, well, what would you do differently? And my honest answer was everything. And not because I regretted any piece of the experience I learned from all of it. But the idea that if I could do it all over again, I would do it the same way would mean I didn't learn anything from all the time I was doing it. Every piece of it, I would do at least a little bit differently because we learned so many lessons along the way. But you would be floored at how often in an interview I asked somebody about something that didn't work out. And I say, what would you do differently? And they were like, oh, nothing. It was the market. It was my manager. It was the company. Come on, man. You should be learning so much every step of the way. Every one of those experiences is a gift if you accept it, if you are humble enough to learn from it. And so, I think, you don't have to be searching for failure to learn, but you should certainly appreciate the experience, and then the other one is, especially if you're in sales, is live well below your means, because money and needing more of it and spending it will force you to make decisions you otherwise wouldn't want to make. And I know so many people at some point settled along the way for financial security and stopped pursuing their dreams. Keep your expenses low, I didn't do any of this, by the way, but I'm recommending it. Keep your expenses low, save your money, and give yourself the freedom to take some chances.
Good advice. So what is getting you excited for the future of housing, lending, and just Princeton Mortgage in general? Like what excites you for the future?
For me, it's very internal. I'm excited about hiring our next group of leaders that are going to work with the people that we're going to hire. I'm excited about helping those people get better. I'm excited to see all the different ways that they're going to make me better. I'm excited about what it's going to be like working at Princeton when we have 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000 employees, and how we're going to learn how to transfer this culture to all those different people who are probably going to be working all over the country. And I'm really looking forward to a time where we can all go celebrate somewhere and get together and have some drinks post-COVID and maybe enjoy some time together. We'll do some corporate planning and, Orlando next year or something like that. We'll see. That's really what I'm most.
Now I'm excited.
There you go.
No, I could speak to that too. I mean, I've only been with the company about a year and a half, and it's just like in that year and a half time, like the amount of growth, like employee wise, like people who have come on board is just crazy. And you can see the excitement in these meetings when it's like, oh, I'm meeting a new person. I'm meeting this person who's running this department that we didn't have before. Like I think there's excitement for all of this stuff that's going on right now at Princeton Mortgage.
Yeah, I mean, it's like we're hiring somebody new every day.
It's awesome. So enough business. Like we've talked enough about Princeton Mortgage. Tell us about like what Mark Gordon does when he's not killing sales trainings, crushing loans, this sort of thing. What's work-life balance look like for you? I know about the podcast and all that. What else does Mark Gordon do?
I mean, honestly, I hang out with my friends and my kids, and spend time with my wife. I play some sports just to stay in shape, and I spend time at the gym just because I want to be healthy. But I mean, my favorite thing to do is work. I know that's crazy, and everybody thinks I get it. And by the way, I feel bad for my wife and kids too, because people say you're a workaholic, but I probably put in 60 hours a week. It's not like I'm putting in a crazy amount of time, but I do spend a bunch of the time that I'm not working, thinking about work, planning about work. I'm really passionate about what I do. And then I have an amazing friend group here in Charleston, people I respect and learn from, and also help me grow and bring so much value to my life and in my community down here. And our kids are all friends. And so I spend a lot of time with those people, and, and we like to eat a lot of great food down here in Charleston and do that kind of stuff. But really for me, it's about the relationships here at work, the relationships in my community, the relationships in my family, my kids. And so that's where most of my time goes.
You are not working 60 hours a week. I've gotten phone calls from you at like 9:30 at night, dude. Like you are not working 60. You're working like 80 to 100. At least it looks like that. At least that's what you put off to the world.
So it's really hard for me because most of the time, like I'm doing stuff like that doesn't feel like work to me, right? Or I'll send you something that I'm like on my phone reading for fun, and I see something that's like, I guess, work related that I think that you would enjoy. So I send it to you. But I guess if that's work, it's like, sure, I work a lot of hours, but like, it's just the thing I want to be doing. So it's like, it doesn't feel like work. It's very, it all blends together. And by the way, my wife also works here. So like, it's literally, and my friends work here, right? So like, it's
your life.
It's just very all intermingled. So maybe I'm always working, but all at the same time, it only feels like work, maybe 50 or 60 hours a week.
Yeah, I mean, you can go back to that old adage where it's like, if you love what you do, you're never working at all, So you could be working 24 hours a day and not be working because you enjoy it so much.
I woke up in the middle of the night and realized I had been dreaming about work. It's definitely happening.
So lastly, you preach a lot about social media in your sales trainings now with the current, just the current marketplace and everything that goes on. And you also talked about it a little bit earlier. Where can people find Mark Gordon online? What are your social handles? Where can they follow you?
I'm the, I don't know. What are my social media handles? No one's ever asked that before. I'm Mark Gordon on Instagram, and I think I'm the home loan guys on Twitter, but I don't really do a lot of tweeting for work. Really find me on Facebook. Again, for me, it's more about the relationships. I don't need to be friends with a million people, but if you want to connect and you think that we can share something together, find me on Facebook, Mark D. Gordon, letter D. And by the way, find me on LinkedIn, which you can find if you just search Princeton Mortgage and my name. My phone number's there, all that other stuff. I'm an easy guy to get a hold of. So that's really where you'll find me. And I mean, listen, I don't love social media. I just understand the value, which is if these people have all opted into getting information from me because they're interested in me, I would be crazy not to be giving it to them. Right. And so that's kind of my thoughts on that.
And you're obviously like a really good follow. I mean, we follow, everybody here at Princeton Mortgage follows you, and you're giving tidbits about the selling system and just like sales in general, marketplace, updates every now and then on your Instagram, your Facebook. So like, you're a very good follow. So everybody should hit you up.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
All right. We appreciate you coming on the podcast today. Thanks a lot.
This has been an effortless conversation with Mark Gordon, and I am on the journey to 50,000 loans a year.